Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real? Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of DAX Machina. Joining me tonight is Robbie Rip Rains and Carrie Pocket Doc Davis. Our brothers from other mothers. And in the studio tonight, we got a very special guest. Greg Ogles is here. Greg is a documentary filmmaker and researcher in his own right, and he's most recently did the documentary called Legend of the Downy Booger, and that is available on Apple TV and on Hulu. I just watched it again last night. It's a really good documentary. You guys definitely should check it out. Greg, thank you for joining us. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me.
We're happy to have you, bud. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about your process and what got you involved in Bigfoot research.
Well, just a little bit about me. For the last 22 years, I've been an investigator in the field of traffic engineering. But, I've been formally trained in in traffic engineering, in the methodology of investigations. And, I got to a point after like 20 years in the field, I got to a point where I was wanting to do something else. So I'd always been interested in like paranormal and Bigfoot and things like that. So I just decided to go out and just investigate Bigfoot, But being a trained investigator, what I wanted to do is bring in some of the skills I had learned over the years into the field. And if I actually caught anything, to bring some sort of credibility to what I saw. Now, like a lot of other investigators or researchers, what I wanted to do in the very beginning was prove the existence of Bigfoot. I thought, well, if I could bring enough evidence to the table, then surely I could, at least contribute to, the everybody else's research in the field of Bigfoot. So, on some of our first investigations, we came across some of the most fantastic evidence that I have actually seen to date. Literally 45 minutes out in the woods. We're still pretty deep in the woods. It took us a long time to get there by car and then hiking. But we came across this pond, right? So while we're at this pond, we see these footprints coming down a small hill into the pond. And they go around the pond and back up out into the woods. But these footprints were maybe 16 inches long and 7 inches wide at the top of the foot. And what we did, what I would have thought would have been a good documentation of the subject. Well, little did I know that there was a huge difference between documenting in a forensic type of documentation and making things entertaining while you're also documenting. So we had to learn a valuable lesson there, as my presentation was I'm going to say it was awful at the time, but the evidence there was just fantastic. It didn't end that day. We saw another trackway that was identical to the footprints that we saw, except for instead of being a 5.5 foot gate in between the footsteps, it was more like 8.5 to 9 foot gate between.
That's a big stride.
It was a big stride. But leading up to that, there was this was in a field versus being in the woods, right? So when we first got to the field, we noticed this big structure. I guess it looked like, honestly, it looked like a big giant bird's nest over on its side, right? But it was huge. I mean, you could easily get inside it, and it was right next to a game trail. And coming out from that game trail was where we saw these footsteps, right? So I guess at the time we surmised that it was a hunting blind and something was inside waiting on something to come by, and it gave chase and it was running through the field, right? So I'm going to be honest, at the time we thought there was going to be nothing to proving the existence of Bigfoot. We're like, there's nothing to this. We've been out here on our first day. We found 2 sets of tracks. We came across these bat houses that were erected on 4x4s. And I guess the forest department had put them out there. But on one of the poles of the bat houses, on the 4x4s, we found these fingerprints. And the fingerprints were about 7.5, 8 foot up off the ground. Now, the 4 of the fingerprints was on one side, and the thumbprint was on the other side of the 4x4. And we're like, is this thing like reaching up and getting these bats out of the bat houses? And it's, and it really looked like bat guano or guts or something, not necessarily bat, but guts or something, or blood that, made the fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, man, there's nothing to this. We're going to have this proven in 6 months. So little did I know how rare that evidence really was, because we have not come across a trackway like that since then, or at least that significant, And as far as the physical evidence, we were in a treasure trove of it and just didn't realize it because we were very inexperienced. And I hate to say it, but there's a difference between forensic documentation and documentation when it comes to entertainment, documentaries, TV, and making it look presentable. Right. So, we discarded that in the film because it was just so terrible. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. But that's not to say that we didn't have any good evidence coming on later on. We had a ton of evidence. But anyway, long story short, it has been a journey from knowing absolutely nothing about Sasquatch and Sasquatch investigations to being, I consider myself, very seasoned in the field of Sasquatch investigations and really paranormal investigations. But I do consider myself very seasoned now, and there's a lot of things I would do differently going back in time. But hey, you live and learn.
So, what happened to you on a certain fateful cold night in Alabama that changed your thinking?
Well, it's actually in the documentary. Well, it's what I saw. That night that we were making the documentary. I was kind of tromping through the woods, and I saw these red lights that I thought at first was a vehicle. I was like, damn, why is a car out here? And we tried to get it with a camera, but Brent couldn't see them. Brent's my other guy that's with me, and he couldn't see anything. So we tried to get the camera over to him, and it was like, there's got to be a road right over there. So when we actually went down to where I actually saw those red lights, it was still right in the middle of the woods. Mm-hmm. So that was a little bit puzzling to me. And that was kind of the first time I actually saw something that um, that made me think, well, I don't know what that was. Even the footprints that we saw originally, we could say, well, maybe they were hunters or rednecks with really large feet walking through the woods in the middle of February. Maybe plausible, right? Could be, not likely, but could be. But what I saw with my eyes was those red lights, and uh, I call them lights. I don't know what they were. They were red. I don't know if it was a reflection off of the light from the camera. I really don't know what it was at the time, but they were red, and uh, you know, it just it puzzled me. And lately, it not only did it puzzle me, it gave me incentive to continue more. Say, hey, maybe there's a little bit something to all of this phenomena. And later on, just things just kept piling up on us. So it was seeing the lights that kind of changed everything for me.
Thad Brown was wanting to know: Are you kill or no kill? Do you believe in
No
killing
kill.
one?
No, I would not.
That's
Um,
that's where we are. Yeah,
yeah.
we would only ever engage one if we had to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody has the right to self-preservation,
Mhm.
but I see no need to kill one at all. And furthermore, I've really evolved from the notion that I think I have to prove Bigfoot. I think after really thinking about it, that's probably would be the worst thing that you could do for the Sasquatch community. Because if you get government involved, then government never really does anything right except destroy
Right.
things. They can destroy things pretty good, but if you prove Bigfoot that existed, then the next thing you know, they're going to be a protected species. So then logging's going to go out. You're not going to be able to go out hiking and everything else because that'll be rendered as harassing Bigfoot. There's a whole lot of unintended consequences that could go along with that. And right now, frankly, they're doing just fine by themselves.
Yeah, they've survived all
So
this time without our help, quote
yeah,
unquote.
yeah,
Yeah.
without our help, they don't need our help, not at all. So I've really evolved from trying to prove Bigfoot's existence to more just presenting what we encounter and what happens to us, and just showing the world like, hey, there's something more out there in the woods. There really is.
And just let everybody
And
make their own minds up about.
exactly, we show what we encounter, and then you allow the public or the viewer to make up their own mind. I mean, everything that's in our documentary is 100% real, but somebody else might have a different interpretation of what that is. And hey, that's America. Everybody has different opinions on that.
Yeah. That's just like, when DA sent the pictures of what he found to me and Doc, he didn't say, "Look at this footprint." He said, "Hey, y'all, look at this," and he let us
Tell me what you see.
Yeah.
tell me what you see. Look at
Right.
this. That way, Doc and I weren't preconceived to look for a footprint.
Mhm.
That's what we both saw because that's what it was. But
Mhm.
and we talked about that in Gatlinburg that night, Gray. I mean, it's called, what's the technical term for it, DA, in our line of work? You know what I'm talking about. If you
I know.
like, if you're
I know
taking
exactly what you're talking about.
if you're taking a statement from somebody about this, you don't basically putting words in their mouth. But there's actually a technical term for it.
Yeah, you don't want to prejudice somebody.
Right.
Okay, when they hit you, you were feeling hurt, right? They're automatically they're going to
Mhm.
say that. So okay, when this occurred, how did you feel? Then you let them make their same thing with
Mhm.
what you're talking about, Greg.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is what we saw. What do you see?
Right. And that's that over time, and it really didn't take a whole lot of time for us to come to that conclusion. But over time, we really developed our film so that we really wanted the viewer to see our journey, and we hoped that our our evolution as researchers and investigators and filmmakers would be shown throughout that journey, because pretty
Right.
much everything is in chronological order. So we go from really being complete newbies to being, quite seasoned. And you know, I personally don't like when somebody tries to tell me how I should view something. So if I don't like it, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other people that don't like it. So we want to let the viewer make their own decisions um, about what they're seeing, but we do want to quantify that what we're presenting is real, and we actually, we didn't fake anything or set anything up. Um, so, if they take us at our word, which that's really what you have to do when you're viewing a film. You have to actually take them at their word that what they're showing you is true. Then you can make an informed decision on what you're saying. Yeah, an informed decision.
And I think that's the best approach to make. I mean, just present what you found
Hmm.
and let people make up their own mind. I mean,
Hmm.
that's we've got a ton of pictures, Robbie and I and Doc, that we bounce back and forth. And I hate what we call red circle photos.
Yeah,
I refer
yeah.
to it as bullshitography, because you could circle a bush and 25 people are going to swear they see 12 dogmen in this one little red circle. So I
Mhm.
don't ever
Absolutely.
post pictures like that.
Or
And
the
I will send,
Stegosaurus.
yeah, or Stegosaurus. I'll send pictures to these guys all the time. They're like, "Hey, took this out in the woods. What do you see?" And if we don't see anything, we don't see anything. And I refuse to publish a bunch of pictures with absolutely nothing in it, hoping
Mhm.
someone will see something so I can go see.
See? Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I refuse to do that.
Uh, we quite frankly, though, I mean, we experienced so many things during our journey. It's I have really forgotten more than what I can really remember, because we used to go out. I mean, we went out quite a lot, and we experienced a lot of like really freaky things. Like, for instance, when you think that nothing has happened, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go back, and you're headed to the car, that's when action starts happening. You get like things thrown, and we have found that if you acknowledge it, then it's stopped in those situations. But if you ignore it, it just keeps getting more and more. It keeps getting more aggressive, so
Right.
to speak.
It's almost like
So
they're saying, trying to get you to pay attention.
exactly. Um, that we've experienced that a lot, not just a lot. Um, we've experienced other strange things like disembodied voices. Um, I still don't know what to. I don't know where to put these disembodied voices, and I do. We have them on audio from the first in the from the time period of the first film, but we didn't put them in because it's too easy for people to say, "Oh, you just faked that,"
Yeah.
Um, so we just elected not to put evidence like that in the film, because it would have been too easy to debunk, because you don't have a visual on it. But
Yeah.
we've had lots of disembodied voices. We've had a case or two of missing time. Don't know what to think about that. There was another situation where there's three of us that's in the film, right? And we were all three walking down this trail, and all at the same time we became sick, you know. And it just happened very suddenly. We got this feeling of dread, we got this nauseated feeling, and we get this overwhelming urge to turn around. Um, I mean, it happened to all three of us all at the same time, right? So, that was weird. It's something that we really can't quantify because,
It's been my
we didn't
experience.
have.
You get that feeling, especially if more
Mhm.
than one of you gets that feeling. Probably
Mhm.
best to listen to it.
It is, and we've had those feelings multiple times, but it's things like that we really didn't put in the film because it was hard to document that, you know.
Yeah.
But I will say, on one of those instances when we all three got sick at the same time, we turned around and we walked probably a few hundred yards down the way, and then all of a sudden we're back to feeling normal, every one of us.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things that we experience that we just didn't put in the film. And I see a question up. It says, Greg, where are you guys looking for cryptids, if you don't mind? Okay. The legend of the Downy Booger originates from Winston County, Alabama. And Winston County is probably in the heart of the Bankhead National Forest. So we did a lot of research in Bankhead National Forest. After we left Bankhead National Forest, we went to the Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia, and then to near Chatsworth, Georgia, in North Georgia. There's a state park there that's called Fort Mountain State Park, and there's a lot of really weird things happening up there too. But those three areas is where we did a lot of our investigations, but most of it came from the Bankhead National Forest in Alabama.
So, what are some of your future areas you're planning to do some research?
Okay. Yeah, we are working on film number 2. Okay, the film number 2 again has evolved a little bit. We was originally only going to do about a 45-minute episode, and instead we've come across some really, really good evidence. So we're expanding it from the 45 minutes to back to another hour and a half film. So it starts out in the Talladega National Forest, or it's one of the areas that we've been to. It's this place called the Meadow Project, is by Trey Hudson. He's an author and wrote the book The Meadow Project, and he was gracious enough to allow us to go on one of his investigations, and lo and behold, they've got some really weird things happening over there. It's in the Talladega National Forest in Alabama. And we're going to go back to North Georgia, and then we're probably going to culminate this next film, or not probably, we are going to culminate this next film in the land between the lakes, between Tennessee and Kentucky.
That's going to be awesome.
Oh, I am really looking forward to it. I will say we've already got enough evidence. We've got more evidence in the second film than we have in the first one. I thought we had some pretty good evidence in the first film. And for those who don't know or haven't seen the film, toward the end of our investigations for the first film, we started to become a little bit weary because we weren't getting anything on night vision, right? Big surprise. So what we did was we rented a very, very high-end camera with an extremely high ISO. And what that does is essentially sees in the dark. Now, there's problems with high ISO because it turns things kind of purplish, but all it needs is just a little sliver of light to be able to see into the dark. So in that last investigation, we see this phenomena that we do all the time. It's these little orbs. It's what I'm going to call them for lack of another word. And as we're filming this orb, it starts, there's a storm coming. So we have to cut the investigation short. So we go home and, Brent's editing all of the video and he calls me up. And he says, hey, we got something. I'm like, yeah, we got the orb. What? No, we got something. So we get the team back together and sure enough, he on one of the clips where he turns and just surprisingly turns the camera on and starts filming the orb, we catch something crawling between us and the orb, and it looks like it's caught in an oh shit moment. I'm sorry for my language. Oh crap moment. And
we're good.
And it's crawling like on all fours. And when you blow it up on a big screen, you can actually see the arms and the forearms and the shoulders, the elbows, and it like crawls one way, another way, and back another way, and then finally off screen, right? But we didn't see it when we were there,
Sounds like it's spider crawling, DA.
It's exactly what it looked like. Later on, I was talking to the guy that introduced us to that area, and without me even telling him what we had caught, we were talking about the Bigfoot that's over in that area, and he says, there's a big one up in there that is not. He kind of like stands around and just looks at you. And there's another younger one that likes to crawl up on you and get as close as he can without being seen. So I'm like, holy crap, that's what we caught on film, maybe, So
he wants to come be the big spoon with you, Doc.
Negative.
Negative, Ghost Rider. The pattern is full.
So what we had seen was, or what we had captured on film was both exhilarating and quite disturbing all at the same time, because we didn't see it. We didn't hear it. I didn't know it, had no clue that it was there. But yet the camera that we had rented, it actually caught it, because it tries to focus on it. It really does. It sits there and it's trying to focus, and it finally gives up and focuses back out on the orb.
Now, was this? I know you've told me the story several times, Greg, but was this in Georgia?
This was in Georgia. That's correct.
Okay. Remember the story I told you about in Georgia when I was in Georgia with the crickets and everything, and all of a sudden it was just dead.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't hear anything until everything shut up. So they sneaky.
Yeah, quite sneaky. And plus, too, with the storm coming in, it was real windy. And, Janice makes a comment that she actually liked it being real windy because something would feel comfortable sneaking up on us. And I was like, well, it's bad for us because we wouldn't hear it, right? So that's actual conversation that we were having before, we filmed the thing crawling between us. And it's really weird. I don't know the association between the orbs and the Sasquatch, if there is any, or I really don't know what these orb thingies are. But I will say they're 100% real. But what they are, I don't know. But I've seen them over and over and over again. The one that we filmed that night hung out with us all night. It was there for hours.
I noticed on the documentary you guys were camping out in those hammocks between trees,
mm-hmm.
and it just occurred to me that you were basically the soft tacos of the Bigfoot world.
Exactly. We were.
Y'all were soft tacos. Doc's gonna be the big spoon or the little spoon. So
I don't know whether it's bravery or foolishness, but nothing really scares me anymore because I've seen so much crap.
Well, yeah, not that a tent would really provide any more shelter or
No.
defense.
Then you're just the Hershey's Kiss in the middle of the.
You are.
Tinfoil
They'll just
wrapper.
unwrap you. If they wanted you, they're going to come get you.
So
Jack
Greg,
Mack wanted to know what you thought about the numbers of cryptid population in LBL, Bigfoot or otherwise.
Well, I've never been to the LBL. So I've been doing a whole lot of research on the LBL. And I think there may be a higher density of them there than there are other places. From the stories from the stories that I've been hearing, I think there's quite the density of them there is higher than most other places.
So getting back to the second film, Greg, and the things like that. Any reason that, or who's going to be in this that our visitors may or our listeners may want to tune in and
they may. Tell you what, it's going to start out with Trey Hudson and his group, the ASOG group, and you'll have to kind of research. There's way too many in there to tell. One of my favorites from that group is Grumpy from Killing Bigfoot. It came out as Killing Bigfoot, but he's an incredible individual, very nice man. I love Grumpy to death. So they're going to be in it. I have a guy named John Newland who has some incredible UFO footage, and he is also he's current law enforcement now, but he was also he's been in law enforcement for 20 years or so, and then we're just going to have a small investigation with just me and my crew. And then when we go to the land between the lakes, here's who I hope to gather at the land between the lakes: Robbie Raines, D.A. Roberts, Tex from Texas Front Porch, Krista from the Blondes and Booze, Brandy from the Blondes and Booze, and Adam Davies. We hope to.
Maybe even a dock sighting is
there
possible.
May be even a dock sighting in there. He might come shoot through in a cameo and then shoot right back out. There's never can tell where that dock's going to be.
It's just a small part in the film, though, right?
Yeah, just a small part.
Then a profile like Patterson Gimlin. It's the Patterson Gimlin doc.
That's right.
Y'all are a bucket full of laughs, man.
Love you, mean it, Doc.
I feel it.
Hey, that's for all the freaking smart comments.
So Mike's got a question. Greg, can you see the orb footage in your documentary, The Downy Booger? Absolutely. It's right toward the end. And we're actually filming the orb because we haven't had any luck catching any kind of Bigfoot or anything on night vision, but we knew we saw these little orbs all the time. So we got that camera and we were just filming the heck out of the orb, right? So yeah, what the bright object that you see at the end of the movie, at the end of the film, is the orb that we see.
I was waiting for it.
What?
Ken got you back.
There's yours, Ken.
It'll be an English speaking part. It's just going to be with small syllables.
Hey, Ken, I speak 2 languages. Thank you very much. English and bad English.
My monosyllabic friend.
God, there's 2 of them now.
Yeah, we may have to have a translation from caveman to English.
Robbie's our official Sasquatch translator. They speak the same language.
They say no.
But in the second film, we're going to have some fantastic experiments going on. They might be kind of comical. They might be scary. I'm not sure, but they're going to be, some very interesting experiments that we're going to have going on. And it's sure to be something to watch. That's for sure. Especially with gosh, there's no telling what Adam's going to say when he gets in there.
Nope.
We're going to put Robbie out in the middle of the woods in a set of bibbed overalls stuffed full of red licorice and a can of Ready Whip.
Hey, he can't take over my spot as Dogman.
No, yeah, that's Dogman eye candy. I don't think that's Greg.
That's me. For those that don't know, I was kind of dubbed Dogman eye candy at the last Dogman conference out in Texas.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's because I didn't have anything to do. I didn't have a table or anything, and I knew most of the speakers, so I was just kind of wandering around looking cute.
That's part of the story.
Yeah,
There's a little bit more to it than that, but I'm not going to tell it. It's not my story to tell.
Depends on whether or not the photographic evidence still exists.
Well, I'm pretty sure it still exists on one end. It may have disappeared on Greg's end, but I'm pretty sure still got it.
You saving that for a rainy day, are you?
Not me, but there's a certain person that's probably in the chat group or in the chat. I hadn't seen her, but there's a certain person that probably still has it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get hold of her phone.
Lest that come up at a later date. Yeah, God forbid 10 years from now you're running for public office and those pop
Oh my
up.
God. Oh my, can you explain this? Why were you wearing makeup, Greg? What's wrong? Are you joining the trans movement? No.
It's just a filter. Leave me alone.
That's right. It was to make me look younger.
Mission accomplished.
That's right.
I've never seen a filter at high heels before.
To make me look taller.
Well, maybe we got to get some for Doc then.
Oh my goodness.
And no, there's not a filter that makes you look smarter, so I'm out of luck. Beat you to it, Ken. Ha! That was called a preemptive strike, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Mack had a question about the books. He says, "Hey, DA, is Valkyrie and Margolin ever together at all? Asking for a fan story I'm working on." Well, that very thing gets addressed in the two short stories I'm working on, Demons Part 1 and 2. And it's basically dealing with Margolin's past and ghosts of his past coming back to haunt him. I'm hoping to have Demons Part 2 done this week. And we're going to be releasing a compilation of short stories. It'll be novel length. It'll probably be 80,000 words worth of short stories. Hoping to have that out maybe first of the month. I've got to get with my cover guy on Friday and see how soon we can get a cover for it. But I should have the short story compilation ready to roll soon. And I've got another book on the heels of that. It'll be the first fantasy novel. And right after that one, you guys will finally get your wish and see the return of Will Gray Eagle. So there's food for thought.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Sounds fantastical.
If they only knew half of the stuff that you've taught with me and Doc about,
I think they're going to be pretty happy with the next Wild Hunt.
They wouldn't leave you alone. Because this is all I can do. I'm sure Doc's the same way. It's all I can do. But hurry up.
Yeah, I had seen in some of the questions earlier, somebody asked me if I had any dogman encounters. I would have to say no at this point.
That may change. You get to LBL.
I'm going to the LBL. That is for sure. It is written in stone. We're going to the LBL.
I saw one in broad daylight in LBL.
Really?
Yeah, about 30 yards off the road. Just about half a mile down from DeMumbers Bay.
See, I've never been there, but we're
Greg,
yeah.
DeMumbers Bay, that's where the cabins that Chris is talking about, that's where we're going to be. Isn't that right, DA? It's right close to it, right?
I think it's Demumbers Bay. I'd have to ask Krista.
I'm pretty sure that's what she said.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Neoma said the one she saw in LBL was in broad daylight too.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah, they ain't afraid to come out in the daylight.
In the daylight, really?
Yeah. I'd say they are more active at night, but LBL is such a wild and woolly area with so few people. They're not afraid of much in there.
So it's wild and woolly in there, huh?
Yeah. You get more than about 20, 30 yards off the road, you may not find it again.
Really?
Yeah. Especially if you're there, when everything's still growing. If you're there in the fall when the leaves are falling, of course you're going to be able to see farther between the trees. But when everything's bloomed out, I was there in mid-July, and it was thick.
Well, see, that's one of the reasons why I want to go when we're going, is to make sure that there's no foliage, because you're better able to see off into the distance, into the woods. And, there's a number of reasons why we don't film in the summertime. There's too many gnats, chiggers, snakes, ticks, everything else out there that you have to contend with. But other than that, all of the insects that you have out, we made one of the things that we had done when we were kind of newbies is we put out some audio traps, but we had done it in the month of May. Well, in the month of May in Alabama, there's this phenomenon called whippoorwills that come out. And I think one perched right on top of our recorder and just went whoop, whoop, just all night. I mean, you had to listen in between the chirps, But one of the things that we caught was this drumming and what sounded like Indian chants. And it was so cool to listen to. We're like, what is this? Because at first we thought, did we kind of cross over into maybe picking up something from the radio waves or something, like a radio station? But we're like, no, this is just too weird, And surely, I mean, unless it's some sort of demonic radio station, I'm sure they wouldn't be playing what we heard, But it was really, really cool that, we caught something that, we couldn't hear with our ears. But with our stupid inexperience, I mean, we caught it during a time where you couldn't. I mean, the viewer, we couldn't put it in a film because the viewer wouldn't be able to hear it. You couldn't stand to listen to it for very long. So
I was having a conversation with Doug Hycheck from Monster Quest, and it wasn't on the air. We were just talking, video chatting, and he was telling me about when him and his son were up at Snell Grove Lake in Canada. He said the camera crew and the documentary crew were all at the cabin. Him and his son took a canoe out pretty far out into the lake. He said they were a couple of miles from the cabin. He said they got back in this little area, this little slough, and they started hearing. He said, at first I thought it was singing, but then I realized it wasn't really words. It was very, very melodic, very fluid. And he started describing it to me. He says, I've never heard anything like it, before or since. And I said, is it kind of like culling? And he goes, what's culling? And it was the herding call that the Norwegians used to use, the Vikings used to use to call their cattle back from distances down these long fjords. And it's melodic, and those high pitched notes will carry long distances, but there's no words to it. Every clan had their own herding call that they would use. And when I sent him the link to it, he listened to it. He goes, oh my God, that's almost exactly what we heard.
Wow. These to me sounded more like it was like Indian chants, like they were drumming around a fire and they were singing. Is really what it sounded like to me. But one of the other things that really freaked me out, and I was able to hear this with my ears, but it kind of freaked me out when I very, very first started. It was right after a kind of like a rainstorm, and everything in the woods got really, really quiet. I mean, it was extremely quiet, and it was like this eerie feeling, right? So you know how you can go by like a tree after it's rained, and then you kind of brush against it, and then the water falls from it, it goes shh, shh. So we kept hearing that, right? And I was like, hey, listen, listen, listen. And it kept getting closer and closer, but there was coming from all like two different directions, sort of. So that you could tell that there was whatever it was, there was more than one moving along the brush. And this was in the middle of the summertime. So it was hard to see into the brush. But then I started hearing this this real low, distinct mumbling, you know. You know that they were something was talking, but you couldn't quite make out what they were saying, you know. And it was really disturbing. And then right after that, this limb, I mean, it was huge. It was like this big, just going crack. I mean, it was a big limb break, and it wasn't too far from. It's kind of scared the bejesus out of me, to be honest with you. But later on, we went back and found the limb, and there was nothing wrong with the limb at all. It was perfect limb. I mean, you had to physically just break it, and there wasn't any wind or anything that would have caused the wind to that limb to break at that time. I don't know. I mean, that time I was kind of freaked out, and the other time when I brought one of my camera people to the Bankhead National Forest. She was a young lady, still in college, wanted to be a cinematographer, and she was just out really to get some resume experience. And she didn't really quite know exactly what we were filming, and you know, she had no concept of what we were doing. So she wanted to go out and kind of see what we were doing. So at this time, I started to become a little bit more experienced. So before we even got deep into the woods, I took a magnetic camera and put on top of the car, and they kept on going into the forest. And when just as we were about to park, we saw something kind of big and black, sort of just dart through the woods, and it was only a glimpse. So I to this day, I still don't know what it was, but you know, I was not too worried about, you know, what it was, because, you know, I had the camera on top of the car. So we stopped and we kind of looked for a few minutes, and then we went down this trail. And as we're walking down this trail, where it's about a quarter mile down the trail, as we're walking, something starts walking right beside us. As we walk, it walks. We stop, it stops. And she's like, you know, like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know. It kind of happens to us all the time. So it's nothing to worry about. So as we walk a little bit further, it starts getting closer and closer to us. And finally, it gets really close, and it's whatever it is, sounds pretty heavy. And she's starting to get a little bit freaked out. She kind of gets behind me and says, hey, okay, I'm ready to go. And about that time, these two trees, about 8 big around, just start violently shaking. And it wasn't very far, about 10, 15 yards away from us. But the brush was so thick, you couldn't see. So anyway, long story short, when we got back to the car and I checked the footage on the film, I noticed that just seconds before we pulled in to the place where I parked, the footage was corrupted, and it stayed corrupted for 15 minutes. And then the camera started working good again. So we had a lot of that going on with us too.
Did you say
sometimes? Go ahead, Robbie. Sorry.
I was going to say, didn't you say that like on the first documentary, like batteries are all charged and everything, and I went there, and as soon as you hit record, they were dead?
I noticed that a couple of times on the first documentary, that you were having trouble with your equipment losing power.
Yes, we did.
I've had that happen and never really found a logical explanation for why.
That happened over and over and over again. It's one of the reasons why it took us so long to make the first film, because we came across a lot of situations where we thought that we had some really good footage going on, but when we go back and check the footage, a lot of times we'd find files that are corrupted, or our batteries would just die, you know, just inexplicably. And that we still have that phenomenon going on. When we were investigating the Skinwalker Ranch of the South, the Meta Project, we had that very phenomenon go on, and certain spots, the cameras, the batteries in the camera would die, and then we'd move down a little bit further, and then it'd power back up again. So it's a phenomenon that happens a lot. And to me, I still don't know why, because the batteries, it wouldn't matter what kind of battery you put in, it would just die. So it happens quite a bit, but it's also, that is one of the reasons why it took us so long to make the first film.
There's an old Civil War cemetery about 4 or 5 miles from my house. It's just out at the outskirts of town. It's called the Union Campground Cemetery, and most of the graves are unknown. They're marked, but that's name unknown. So most of them are just unidentified soldiers. And every time I've been down there and tried to film with my cell phone, it overheats and won't film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I say, the electronic phenomena is something that I didn't expect. I thought a lot of people were just making crap up, that you see on TV and all that, but it's very, very real. I can't explain it. One of these days, maybe I will, but I do know that on several instances, there was one time we had 4 cameras with us because we had experienced this so often. We had 4 freaking cameras to go off all at once, and none of the batteries worked. They were all hot batteries when we put them in and walked up the hill, and then when we came back down the hill, lo and behold, they all powered back up, and that's when we caught the horse scene. That's in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And
one of the things about the documentary that impressed me is, I've watched a lot of documentaries, and like you said, the documentaries have to not just present information; they've also got to be entertaining. A lot of times they'll just present stuff and just go along with it. But there was one tree formation you guys found that had the burn marks, the big logs with the burn marks,
the big X.
After a couple of minutes, you're like, wait a minute, this was probably pushed over. So I was really impressed that you guys were debunking your own evidence, because I like that. If it's wrong, I want to present it as, okay, we thought that's what this was. We're going to tell you what it really was. Like when we had the weird skull on here, as soon as we found out what it was, we told everybody.
Yeah. We looked at that. It took a hot minute to investigate that, but after we investigated it, we finally came up to a logical conclusion that it was just pushed over. We had to look around. There were some marks on the tree that also suggested that. However, that's one of those situations where the files were corrupted and you didn't actually get to see that part of it. But when we were at the berm, that was one of the situations where we couldn't explain this, that berm of trees or brush, because it wasn't the same kind of brush that was in the surrounding area that had to be brought there. And it was about 3 foot tall, about 50, 60 feet long. And we heard tree knocks while we were there. I mean, that's one of the things that kind of startled us both. We had a directional mic that was facing right toward me, and the knocks came back from behind where Brent was, so they didn't pick up on audio. But it actually kind of startled us while we were there. It was a quick pow, pow, pow. And, I think we're actually onto something right there at that one spot, because the tree structure was near like a little overhang, and there was a whole lot of evidence pointing toward that was made by somebody, or it was made.
Jack Mack had a good question. He said, do y'all think the natural EMP has more to do with the creatures or the places?
I don't know. I will say that a lot of the places where we had some of the natural EMPs was in areas where there was lots of crystal, lots of quartz. Okay. I do know that quartz has the ability to absorb and store energy. So that being said, maybe that's the cause of the natural EMPs. But, it's not like those were the only places that it happened, where it had lots of
Limestone
quartz.
limestone tends to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Limestone has weird properties when it comes to energy.
It does. So, but one of the things that we had noticed a lot of was quartz. You know, you could just look around, find quartz just laying up on top of the ground. You know, so um, yeah, it's very possible that it's a natural phenomenon. You know, it's just like it's very possible that the orbs that I see is a natural phenomenon. I just don't know what they are. However, I don't think natural phenomena follow you around. You know, there's times when we go out and these orbs hang out with us for hours, and they hang out with us for so long that, hey, I need to go to bed. So you start walking back to your tent, right? But here they come. You know, they like follow you. And my son, he didn't believe us so much at the time, and so I like carried him up to where we experienced this stuff, and sure enough, right on cue, here they come. You know, little orbs, and he's like, "Dad, what is that?" And I'm like, "Hey, that's what I told you about, son." And he's like, we hang out for a little bit. He's like, "Okay, Dad, I'm ready to go back. It's getting a little weird." So we start walking back to our
Look at the
tents, and
time.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that. But here these things come. They're coming through the woods, but they're not going through trees or anything. They're going around trees and around brush, but they're following us. Kind of like a lost puppy. And he's like, Dad, they're following us. I'm like, yeah, son, they'll stop when we get up to this clearing. So by the time we get to the clearing, they'll stop. But he didn't believe until he saw it with his own eyes. And quite frankly, I'd never heard of orbs until I saw one. So I'm just calling them orbs for lack of another word. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are.
Boys, jump on in there if you guys got questions.
I'm just listening and learning, man.
Well, I'll say that, we experience so much that like I said, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, or if it's bravery or foolishness. I'm not scared of anything anymore. We've been surrounded by things, walking in the woods. We've had stuff thrown at us. There was one time, okay, and I don't mind saying where it's at. It's at Fort Mountain in North Georgia. We were there with a group, and we were not filming at the time, but this is just one of our own expeditions. So we were going out one night, and this is right after we had seen the orbs. These fantastic orbs. So one of this lady in our group, her name's Angela. She has this really, really nice FLIR. What color are the orbs? Blue, whitish blue. But we were going. She was going over this little hill. She's got this FLIR, and we saw this thing that looks like a rock. It looks like a very large rock, like kind of close to the ground, like a boulder. And we're like, but there's lots of bear in that area. So we're like, let's hold on just a minute. Let's make sure that this is not a bear just kind of sitting there waiting to ambush us, right? That's the worst thing you can do is get ambushed by a bear. So it makes for a bad day. So we're sitting there, we're watching this thing. And as we're watching it, we're there for about 3 or 4 minutes, and it starts doing this number right here. It starts, kind of rocking back and forth, right? And we're all at once like, hey, rocks don't rock, right? So this is actually something, because, it was a quiet night. There wasn't any wind blowing. And about the time it started rocking, these pebbles or whatever starts being thrown at us from a different direction. And I say to Angela, I said, hey, look, this is a distraction. Keep the FLIR on the target. Whatever it is trying to just distract us. And the objects keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when they start getting pretty good size, I would say, size of a baseball or something, it finally stands up. The object that we're looking at stands up. And when it stood up, you could see the face, you could see the arms, and you could see everything on this thing you could see. I mean, it was very clear that it was either a person or a Sasquatch. It couldn't have been either of the two. Couldn't have been a bear. Didn't have I mean, you could see the definition of the face because this FLIR was. I mean, it's a really good FLIR. And then something like a big giant log comes, being thrown at us from the same direction that they're being thrown from. And she's like, "Oh my God, maybe it's a bear." So she takes the FLIR and does this, and then comes right back just that quick. The object's gone. Gone. I mean, you're looking all around up in the tree. Gone. I'm like, how does that happen?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So
Honcho Zorch had asked, I'll jump back to his question. If you'd seen or heard of any examples of braiding, like in horses' manes, horses' tails, what they sometimes refer to as witch braiding?
I haven't seen any braiding as far as like you would see traditionally in hair. The berm that I was talking about earlier had some braided twigs and twines. I mean, they were braided in amongst each other. So like what I'm trying to say is, like, you put a long stick or something in there, and then you take other vines or whatever, and you braid them around each other. Now we saw that, but as far as like small, braided things that would indicate culture, we didn't see that. It's not to say it doesn't exist. It's just we didn't see it.
And what was the other question? There it is. Jack Mack was wanting to know if you had any theories on what the origin of those orbs are.
We got a lot of theories. We got a lot of theories. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is a natural phenomena. Is it something like ball lightning? Well, I could entertain that for a little bit, but ball lightning, any type of discharge is going to dissipate within a few seconds. It's not going to just sit and last for hours. These things last for hours. Furthermore, when they move through the woods, they don't move like through a tree, or they go around the tree, right? Because as you're sitting there watching them, they'll illuminate the tree as they go by. Another thing that kind of come up, it's kind of out there, but is it a drone of some sort? Because they seemed to have responded to stimuli. And what I mean by that is that the first time we saw the magnificent ones, the ones that's really, really bright, the first time we saw them, we thought they were flashlights. We thought it was one of the rangers coming to check on us because we were in a place. We told the rangers where we're going to be, and he said he might come out and check on us. So we thought it was him, and we're calling out to it saying, "Hey, we're up here, just come on, follow our voice." So it gets about 50 feet away from us, and then it kind of stops, and we're saying, "Hey, we're here. Just follow our voice. Come on up," and there's no verbal response. So again, Angela pulls out the FLIR and looks, and there's nothing there. We're like, "Oh, holy crap." And now this thing it's as bright as a flashlight. It's illuminating, the surroundings around it. So since we had already been talking to it, we just started talking to it. And, one of the things is like, "Hey, can you make yourself brighter?" And sure enough, right when you talk to it and ask that, it would get real bright. But then it would be like, it would seem as if it used up a lot of energy, and then it became dimmer than it was before for a while, and then it would eventually get a little bit brighter. There's various other things that it would do. Like I think somebody asked, could you go higher, and it would go up a little bit and then come back down. It appeared as if it, responded to stimuli.
Yeah.
So it appeared as if it's either A, under intelligent control, or B, it's intelligent itself.
Yeah.
And when they start following you, that was one of the other things, like, okay. And one of the things are the ghosts and lights, orbs, or are orbs ghosts? I don't know. I don't think so, because I've seen a ghost. I didn't believe in ghosts until I saw one. We were out in central west Georgia, and we were investigating this cabin that's in the middle of a field. And sure enough, this Indian on a horse materializes in front of Janice and I, and we watched it ride all the way down the field. And when it got to the tree line, it disappeared. But it didn't, it didn't react to us. It didn't acknowledge us in any kind of way. It was like doing its own thing,
Like a residual haunt, not an
Yeah,
intelligent
yeah, like a residual haunt thing. And we were both, dumbfuddled, because it was like, it was solid, like a person and a horse right there, right? It was very solid. So are they ghosts? I guess it could be. They could be a lot of things. I just don't know what they are. I would really like to investigate further, because they sort of captivated, my my attention.
Doc, you all right?
So, and I think you and I kind of have talked about this, Greg, but just for the listeners, sometimes people will say, you were walking in the woods and these things were following you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've talked about stationary light sources. If it's something off in the distance and you're moving, it appears to follow you. Have you been able to debunk that?
Yes. Every time they would stop at the edge of a clearing when we were going back to our tents, they didn't appear to like get out into a clearing. They would stay amongst the trees. So the distance that we traveled, it was probably only a couple of 100 yards back to our tents. But that going through the woods a couple of 100 yards is actually pretty far, and it's tough to see through very thick woods for 100 yards, and much less 200 yards. And they would be right at the edge of the woods. So short story is, we met. I know the optical illusion that could happen if you see a light and you're walking along the road, and it could look like it's following you, but these actually did follow us, on multiple occasions. Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew you and I had talked about that, but just for everybody in the audience,
right?
That there will probably somebody would have had that question of, okay, is it a stationary light source? Because that is an optical illusion. It looks, if it's
It exactly is. It exactly is. But I'm so looking forward to this film number 2.
Yep.
I think that we're gonna have a good time, and there's a lot of experienced people here, and I am so excited about this one. It makes me just want to squeal.
Well, this is what I'm excited about, especially if Doc shows up, and I've got Doc, DA, and you and a couple others. If we find some tracks, I want to actually get in an actual tracking formation where I can look down and I don't have to worry about constantly watching my back. Y'all can do that and see if we can actually follow these tracks, see if we can find where these tracks go to.
Where they go to?
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, my brother and I came across some tracks, and it was right after it had snowed, and the tracks came out of the woods, went to like a window at my aunt's, and then back into the woods. But the tracks were about a foot, maybe 14 inches long, but they only had 3 toes, and they were wider at the front and then kind of went back, kind of more pointed there toward the back. Now, I was a child when I saw this, so I didn't know what I was looking at. But the most remarkable thing that I remember is it had 3 toes. So, have you guys experienced anything that's got 3 toes?
A lot of the stories of the Gugway say it has 3 toes.
Well, and doesn't the Honey Island swamp monster have 3 toes as well?
It does.
Yep. And that one trackway from the Legend of Boggy Creek out there in that guy's bean field, that's the only ones of any tracks that they found around there that had the 3 toes. But that trackway in the bean field was 3 toes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now,
like Doc said, the Honey Island swamp monster.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we just thought it was so weird that it came out of the woods and went to a bedroom window of my cousin, and then or my cousin's bedroom window. It was at my aunt's house, and then back off into the woods. So we were thinking, what kind of pervert is this? We were kids, like, who's coming in and looking at, my cousin, looking in their window. But it was right after it had snowed, and the tracks were really, they were really good tracks. Like I said, I was a child then.
Right, yeah, looking for faces to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm. But I'm excited too about kind of delving off into the UFO phenomenon. We've got some really good footage of some things that's going to be in the second film, and I'm just so excited about this one. When we made the first film, we learned how not to make one, because we didn't know the first thing about making a film. That's why it took us so many years to make it, along with all the other complications that we had.
It's funny you say that, because that's what I say about my first novel. That what I learned with that book was how not to write a book.
Exactly. How not to do something, right? So you find out all your mistakes and everything in the first time you do something. But, even still, we didn't quite exactly know what we were doing on the first one. I'm still proud of our first film. I'm really proud, and I would compare. Yeah, I'd put it up against a lot of the other documentaries that's out there. Now, some of the other stuff that's out there that you see coming on, TV, that they're pumping out 15, 20 episodes a year. I'm here to tell you, you're not seeing anything if you're pumping out 15, 20 episodes a year, because 90% of the time when we went out, crickets. You didn't see something every time you go out. I would like to debunk that right now. You're not seeing something every time you go out.
Well,
you don't get ratings with nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Greg, DA, Doc, and I have watched. I know we haven't watched every documentary that's out there, but we've watched a good chunk of them, because we're all the time bouncing them off each other. Hey, you seen this one? How about this one? Or how about this? So we watched a good chunk of them. And personally, I would rate yours towards the top of any of them that I've seen.
I appreciate that.
I put yours up there with with the ones at Small Town Monsters all day long.
Oh,
Because
thank you.
there's
I
some out
appreciate
there.
that.
There's some out there that are just plain out stupid. And
Mhm.
you know, DA and Doc, I have watched them, and I mean, it's just like, how did they get this stuff out there? But you can tell the way you present it that, number one, you care about the content, and you want to put good content out there. You're not just out there just to put something out there just to get your name out there and just to say, oh, yeah, I made a documentary. Right. And you know, you can tell that not only you care about putting a good documentary out there, you care about the topic you're putting it out there about. You can tell you're passionate about it. And I think those two things together make a good combination for a good documentary. And that's, you know, DA and I have talked about it, and I know Doc's been involved in that conversation. That's one of the reasons that we were so on board with coming on and getting in a documentary with you, because you do put out good content. You don't put out, I'm going to say it, and I know it's going to piss people off, it's not the woo. And what we deem the woo, we don't say that anything is impossible. We don't say that all this, you know, we just say this is the experiences that we've had.
Yeah.
We haven't. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Robbie. Yeah, it's evidence based, and that's one thing that we've always talked about is, and you hit the nail on the head earlier on. It's you know, you present the evidence and let people draw their own conclusions, but you know, it is what it is. It's the evidence.
Right. You know, I can't. A lot of people ask me now, like, "Oh, do you think Bigfoot's flesh and blood, or do you think it's, you know, what this over here?" I'm like, I don't know. Is it flesh and blood? Yeah, sometimes leaves tracks. You know, bends stuff, makes objects. It makes noise. You know, if you hear something, you know, go, whoop. They're out there, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, they're physical at times. I will say one of the trackways that we were following just stopped abruptly and didn't go anywhere. How that happened, I don't know. I didn't see it, though. I mean, I didn't see what made the track. Yeah.
Want me to jump in there, DA?
You go right ahead, man. You're the train tracker.
Okay. And this is, but see, and this is what we like about you, Greg. You didn't say, well, it stopped, so it must have done this. You said, I don't know. I didn't see what
exactly.
It did.
I didn't know. I don't know.
But that's the right mindset to have, right, guys?
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Because Greg, you and I've had this conversation, so this is not for those of you out there. This is not a conversation that Greg and I haven't had. But basically, you have to have an open mind, and when you're investigating this, and Greg's a trained investigator, it may not be investigating criminal cases like DA and I have, but investigation is investigation is investigation.
It's all the same principle.
It doesn't matter if you're investigating the stuff that Greg has to do with the roads or things like that, or murders. The formula for investigation is the same no matter what. So
exactly, yes.
To get from point A to point Z, you have to hit all the points in between. You can't go from straight from A all the way to Z. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, you can't make that leap. You know,
you have to eliminate every possibility before you can say, okay, I've eliminated everything that's logical and normal, and so then it must be something out of the ordinary. So our opinion on this, you know, like DA said, I'm a trained tracker. I've gone through these classes. If you're not a trained tracker, and this is not a knock on anybody that gets out there and looks at footprints, but if you don't know what to look for a backtrack, it's going to look just like a normal track. But you got things like primary point of impact. If you're walking forward, what point of your foot's going to hit the ground first, Greg?
If you're going forward, it's going to be your heel.
Right. Okay. But if you're walking backwards, what part of your foot?
It's going to be the ball of your foot.
Exactly. So there's going to be different pressure releases. There's going to be different tear off. There's going to be different dispersion. Things are going to be different. But if you don't know what all that is and all those terminologies and what those terminologies mean and what they're looking for,
what to look for.
Yeah, you're going to see a set of tracks that just stop, and you have no explanation for it, which is fine. And your explanation was, I saw it stop, but I don't know what happened from there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, okay, you're at point A when you say, I don't know what happened.
Right.
But so many people want to go to point Z and say, oh, well, they must have went into a portal. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe,
See, I can't say that.
yeah, maybe they did. Who knows? We're not saying that they don't. Maybe they did. But who's to say they didn't backtrack?
Yeah.
All you have to do is look in nature. There, grizzly bears backtrack, rabbits backtrack. There's tons of other animals that know how to backtrack.
Our military's taught to do it.
Yeah, people can be taught to backtrack. So if we can be taught to do this, what is something that is born into nature with a natural ghillie suit, very high intelligence, that does not want to be seen? What can it do?
There's no telling what it can do.
So who's to say that this thing didn't, realize that the hairless monkey with the boomstick was what was following it? Said, fix him. Backtrack, walks past a boulder or walks past a tree or whatever, then backtracks, jumps up on the boulder or jumps up in the tree, takes off about 30 or 40 yards to the left or right, drops down and takes on off.
Yeah, there's not just one explanation. You can't just go straight to the most, the most extreme conclusion that there is out there without doing some sort of analysis of everything that could happen, right? So, I can't say what Bigfoot is. It's just like, because I haven't had a scary encounter, it would be unethical of me to say that all Bigfoot are passive and friendly.
Right.
It would be unethical of me to say that. Just because I haven't experienced it does not mean that other Bigfoots in other places are not aggressive and mean and would just come and eat you if they wanted to eat you.
That's the same thing with bears. I mean, you can walk up on a grizzly bear 9 times out of 10, it'll go the other way. But on that one occasion when it's really hungry or it's close to hibernation time or it's got cubs, looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
Exactly. So
and I'm gonna get Ken's ire up on this one, but think about how many times we go in the ocean and do not get attacked by sharks, and how many sharks are in the ocean. But then
there's lots of sharks.
But then every once in a while, somebody gets attacked and killed. It's the same thing. I mean, animals have personalities just like humans. There's good animals, there's bad animals. Bigfoot's no different. If it is a flesh and blood animal, it's gonna have good days, it's gonna have bad days. There's gonna be
those lions in Africa.
Yeah,
so that pair of lions
in the darkness.
Right.
Yeah,
and at least
killer. They killed to kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at least
they enjoyed it.
Sometimes Bigfoot, I mean, everybody has to agree that at least sometimes it's a flesh and blood creature. Even the most woo of people would have to agree sometimes it's flesh and blood because it leaves tracks. There's hair, there's sounds that it makes, and there's physical sightings. So while you're flesh and blood, who's to say that you don't have, all the emotions and everything that every other flesh and blood creature has? So, like I say,
the thing is, and I hate to compare this to what the Batman versus Superman movie, because that was kind of a terrible movie. But to use the analogy Batman said, if even one of them is bad, you have to assume they all are.
Yeah, you have to protect yourself.
Right.
You don't assume the cuddly kind, situation every time.
And it's just like, when I went to my training last week in Alabama, we had a bunch of National Guard MPs with us, and their MPs are military police, but they don't deal with the same things on a daily basis that us law enforcement officers were in. So when we would go do the building clearings and things like that, the instructors would be like, all right, you MPs, you're technically trained law enforcement, but y'all need to listen to to the LE guys because they do this every day. So one question that was asked to me, he says, so who's the bad guy? I said, everybody. I said, we go in a situation like this, we're clearing this, and we just got somebody's out there spraying stuff. I said, everybody's a bad guy. You have to assume that, because if you prepare for the worst and expect the worst, then when you don't get the worst, you're all the better for it. But if you don't prepare for the worst, if you don't prepare for the worst and you go in and you get the worst, you dead.
Exactly. But there's been situations where it's been a little hairy, like when we all had the feelings of dread and being sick and all that. That happened to my wife, not long ago, and I've got some really good footage of of something staring at us. It's silhouetted by the moon. But it's going to be in the second film. Oh, it's great. But again, did something do? I guess this phenomenon called infrasound. Do they make people sick? Kind of like tigers do. Tigers and both elephants can do infrasound. Now, can Bigfoot or Sasquatch do infrasound and disorient people? And I think that's very, very, very possible.
Well, we know it exists in other animals.
Yes,
it's not
exactly.
And even the people that associate infrasound with quote unquote the woo, we know tigers can do it. We know whales use infrasound. We know elephants use infrasound. So it is not unheard of in the animal community. And that's what we do. We kind of look for correlations where there's physical evidence to back it up. And we're never going to be those guys that says this is impossible. It's just far more likely there's an earthbound explanation for it, even if we don't know what it is yet.
Because we even have a theory on the infrasound thing. If you know anything about sympathetic, parasympathetic backlash, like response to a stressful situation, Greg. Okay, think about all the descriptions you've heard about when people describe the infrasound things that they've described. Doesn't it sound an awful lot like a parasympathetic backlash?
Yes, it does.
So if you're in a situation where there's a Bigfoot growling at you and throwing things at you, is that going to dump some endorphins and some things in your system, Doc?
Oh, it definitely would.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And what's going to happen to your system when that stuff starts dissipating after the thing starts dying down?
You crash, because not only do you have the catecholamine release, the endorphins, your body converts glycogen into glucose for rapid fuel, rapid energy, and for fight or flight. And when you come down off of that sugar rush, you're going to be sluggish, you're going to be tired, you're going to be pukey,
And
all of it.
Does that sound familiar to what a lot of people describe as their symptoms from infrasound?
It is.
Pretty dang close. And I'm not that there again. That's not the way. That's a way. That's not the theory. That's a theory. Because I'm a certified defensive tactics instructor. I had to take tests on all that stuff, and the more I got into that, the more it's. And you and I have had that discussion, Doc, about how. Yeah.
And with any of this, what you're saying and what Greg is saying and what we've always said, supposition. I mean, basing your whole existence on a supposition, an uncertain belief, that's a very shaky foundation. I mean, just if you go with evidence rather than supposition, then it's a lot more solid foundation. It just is.
And it's very difficult to explain a mystery with another mystery.
Right.
Yeah.
It's pretty much impossible.
Well, I mean, that's just like it's circular reasoning. That's all. It's answering a question with another question, or a mystery with another mystery. It doesn't work. How do you do this? Well, because of this. Well, how do you get this? Well, because of this. Well, how do you get this? Because of it. And it's nothing but a vicious cycle that goes around. But what we try to do is take, like we just did with that. We took all the symptoms. Doc just gave all the symptoms. of a parasympathetic backlash. And it's almost identical to what people say happened to them when they've been in these situations, which is a stressful situation. It's going to induce the fight or flight syndrome. Because if you're in what you consider a life or death situation, your body goes into that. It goes into survival mode.
Does bizarre things to a body.
Yeah, your body goes into survival mode, and you start deciding, am I going to fight or am I going to run? And that's what Doc was explaining, all the endorphins and things that happens in your body, that adrenaline dump that your body gets to give you either the strength you need to fight or the strength and endurance you need to run away. And that's simple. And if you're in a situation like that, especially if it's somebody who's never seen these creatures and they're out just camping, having a good time and not even expecting that, and they get in these situations, that's really going to throw them into that situation, especially if it's a semi-aggressive one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, take some of those things that Todd Standard just said he's been in, some of those situations, and put somebody who has no or zero belief that these creatures exist and put them in some of the situations he's described. What do you think they would do?
Right.
They would do like one of the people that was in our group, and he beat himself. He's like,
another good example, of that is, Doc, how did you feel the first time you had bullets whizzing past you?
Not good.
When the adrenaline faded, what did you feel?
I threw up.
That's a common reaction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
After my first CERT activation with the riot team, I almost got stabbed. I mean, I came very close to getting stabbed. I felt sick to my stomach for hours after the fight. I mean, I was locked on 100% in the fight till everything was done. But when we were back in the briefing room taking our armor off and everything, my hands were shaking, and I knew how close I came to getting punched in the lungs, and it was pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's scary.
Yep.
I mean,
I've had the exact same thing happen to me. I ended up fighting a guy by myself for 15 minutes waiting for backup to get there. And he was 115 pounds soaking wet carrying a brick, but he was high on bath salts. And I was 245, 250 at the time. And I had him proned out, had the hooks in on, had him on his stomach, and the son of a gun was standing up with me on his back as I was tasing him.
Wow.
Dang.
So once backup finally got there, we got him in cuffed and got him in the car, and he was going to the pokey. I went over in the bushes.
War Criminal says finger dexterity. I missed it. I clicked the wrong one. Finger dexterity breaks down. They said in a situation where you're in a firefight, law enforcement who are trained marksmen, who are trained to operate under stress, they're even trained guys who are conditioned for this very situation. Marksmanship drops to less than 10%.
Yep. Yeah. You lose your fine motor skills. Your gross motor skills you keep.
That's
like
why they teach us to monkey paw the magazines instead of trying to grab them with your fingertips. You'll drop it every time.
A body alarm response situation, man. Yeah, I mean, does the adrenaline, act like a supercharger to your body? Yeah, because it acts on your heart and lungs, makes your heart speed up, makes your bronchial tubes expand, so you bring in more oxygen, makes you stronger, makes you faster. But there's also this other stuff people don't think about. It makes you blind, deaf, dumb, and clumsy. So if you've never experienced this stuff, then it's gonna definitely negatively affect you. Just like the first time I jumped out of an airplane, I had all of the above, and then I did the old pukey thing and everything like that. Many other times that I jumped, I still had the body alarm response. I still had that adrenaline dump, but I kind of knew what was going to happen. I kind of expected it. So I was able to still to think. I was able to perform everything I needed to, because, the training and the repetition helped mitigate those negative effects. But having said that, how many encounters are you going to have? I don't want to have that many encounters to get that comfortable with it. You hear me? I mean, it's just that's a lot of stuff. So
What is it they say? So, and I may have this. I'm paraphrasing. I may have this phrase wrong. That you won't rise to the circumstance. You'll fall to the level of your training.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of, I was going to say, speaking of training, there was a guy who was active military, went out with us, and military people are trained for some scary events, but there was a situation where the people in the group were surrounded by something walking around and just kind of making some noises that I would say is extremely startling. But us as investigators, we became used to it. You know, but this trained military guy was so scared he drew his weapon. He's carried, and that's fine. And he was ready to shoot something. He was so scared. So I will say that some of these situations that you do encounter out in the woods, even though you're trained in, like, with the military, whatever, if you really come across these extreme situations, your reactions, there's no telling what your reaction may
Right.
be.
Yeah, because it's a total. Because to them, they may have had one extreme that they were used to, like y'all were used to that, but to them, that's a whole new.
It's a brand new. Exactly.
Yeah, it's all brand new.
Exactly.
So they go and they haven't trained for that. You know what I mean? So they go right back to it. So
Roxanne Delgado has a good question. She says, "What do y'all think Bigfoot is thinking about when they're just watching?"
I think, to be honest with you, I think we're their entertainment. From what I've experienced, we've encountered situations where they just, you knew that they were kind of around, so we were doing their best to ignore them, so they would stay around. And there was one time this guy named Paul Halsey, he's the guy that kind of got me into Bigfooting, but he was playing some. I forgot the name of the song, but it was hideous. He was on his little Bluetooth speaker, and all of a sudden, this big giant stick comes like hurtling through the woods and lands right between his legs. And I just bust out laughing. That's like, Paul, I don't think they're liking what you're playing right now, buddy. But to me, it was comical. But I could see to other people that could have been scary. So having a stick thrown at you. But anyway,
you never know how you're going to react until it happens to you.
Exactly. Yeah, but they were just kind of sitting around watching us, and I really don't think they liked the music that he was playing. Because they threw as soon as he started playing that song, they threw a stick. But that was funny. So what do I think that they're? I think we're their entertainment. They don't have CNN or whatever. So they're watching us.
I think that might be the case in some of them, but I don't think we can give any one answer for what they're all thinking. Some of them might be looking for an opportunity to drag somebody off, waiting for somebody to get off by themselves. I would say if these things are as intelligent as we believe they are, and from all what seems to be most sighting reports would indicate how smart they are, I would think that it'll be as varied as it would be from person to person. Some person would look at a group of people and see a victim. Some would see a possible friend. I think it would be different from individual to individual and possibly clan to clan.
You are exactly right, because they're all individuals. People are all individuals. Fish are all individual fish. You get some of them that are more aggressive than the other ones, So I've never come across anything of all species that are just this way. I think that's crazy to assume. And frankly, I think it would be unethical to assume that they're all this way or they're all that way. I think it depends on the individual. But from what I've encountered, I think it's just, curiosity.
I would agree with that, at least to a certain extent. As to
Mhm.
what the nature of that curiosity is, it's hard to say. It would depend
Exactly.
on their previous
Exactly.
interactions with people, or even their temperament. Uh, I tell a story sometimes. There was a time that some friends of mine and I went camping up in Rocky Mountain National, and we rounded a corner, and I came almost nose to nose with a grizzly bear. I mean, I could have just reached out and popped it on the nose. It was that close.
Oh
And the
my.
first thing I told everybody not to run, and of course, immediately they ran.
Yeah.
But it looked at me, and I looked at it, and it went one way, and I went back the other. But had it had cubs, or had it just woken up from hibernation, or getting ready to go into hibernation, yeah, I might have been bear chow.
Exactly. Who's to say? I mean, some of the old Indian stories talk about, the the forest people or whatever. Yeah, they call them cannibals at some
Mhm.
point. So, there's stories of them eating people.
Oh yeah.
So, I just think it's extremely. It would be so irresponsible of us, or at least of me as a filmmaker, to say everything is peaceful. They're just curious, whatever. They think sometimes maybe they are just curious. That's what I've encountered. But however, you know, uh, there's other tribes of Indians that says no, these things eat people.
Hmm.
So I would be foolish to ignore that.
Well, yeah, using the bear analogy again, look at that guy they called the
Hmm.
grizzly man. He had been studying this group of
Mm,
bears for years, and even took his girlfriend with him up to camp out near these bears. And all it took was one that
hmm,
was getting too old and sickly to hunt anymore, and it saw an easy meal, and it ate them both.
hmm. Yes, yes, indeed. And Alabama's famous for the white thing. And if you want to know my opinion on the white thing, it's just an old Bigfoot. They're getting old and slow and a little bit gray, and I think they gray just like we do. You know,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, when they get a little bit older, or if they're handicapped or something like that, and they need an easy meal, hey, we're easy prey.
Well, if I was a grizzly bear, and you've got to risk you've got to weigh your expenditure of energy versus the benefit of the meal. If I looked one way down a trail and saw a deer running 40 mile an hour, and then looked another way and saw a guy in a pair of Birkenstocks blasting Fleetwood Mac, I'm going, wonder how that guy tastes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
Bet he
I
can't
just
run 40 miles an hour.
absolutely not. At least I wouldn't be.
Yeah, how
I'd have
fast
to
is
go
that
with
thing?
Robbie. I'd have to go with Robbie.
Yeah, never go for you always go with somebody you can outrun.
That's right.
So in this
I
case, you'll
got.
be able to outrun me and Robbie pretty easy.
Oh, I don't know. Not for very far. I think I'm pretty old myself. So,
I'm old and stoved up.
mm.
Same.
But for those who don't know much about the LBL, what can we expect to experience when we go to the LBL?
Well, one of the things I noticed about LBL, and I've mentioned this before, and it's something I found kind of unique to LBL, is we were staying across the canal in Grand Rivers, and there were
Hmm.
campgrounds around us, and that we were staying in a cabin, and all around us we would see deer and possums and squirrels, and even a few armadillo and raccoons. You cross that canal into LBL, and I saw nothing. In almost an entire week in northern LBL, I didn't see so much as roadkill. Not one. Nope, we lost
Interesting.
Robbie.
Uh-oh.
Robbie's audio cut out. He'll be back in a minute. And another thing you'll notice about LBL is the woods stay pretty quiet. You don't get a lot of animal. Like I said, I didn't see any animals. I didn't hear a lot. You might hear some birds uh, and insects, but as far as regular animal noises, you're just not going to hear it. Um, and I also made the mistake of playing a wounded animal call down at Demumbers Bay about 2 o'clock in the morning, and that got some interesting results. And it's just a very, very bizarre place. Um, it's like no other place I've ever been. And one of the things we've noticed about LBL, and we've also noticed they've been doing this in a lot of other national parks, is they've reintroduced wood bison and elk in LBL. And I think that is an attempt to counteract some of the disappearances.
Really?
There are herds of wood bison and elk in LBL.
Wood bison.
Wood bison. They used to be all over Missouri, but they were pretty much hunted out and hunted to extinction in this area by the 1880s at the latest. But wood bison used to be common in Missouri, in the Missouri Valley along the Mississippi River, and I guess they're pretty good eating because they hunted them out until there's none of them left in this area. Missouri Department of Conservation just recently reintroduced elk to Missouri back, I want to say 96, 97, somewhere around in there. And the population has exploded because they don't have any natural predators. But the area they introduced them is notorious for Bigfoot sightings.
Now that's interesting.
Very.
Is, other than dogman, is there lots of Bigfoot activity in the LBL?
There are a lot of Bigfoot reports in LBL. You get more Bigfoot reports in the south than you do in the north, but there are still Bigfoot reports in the north. And you get more dogman reports in the north as opposed to the south. But again, the area, they do seem to overlap. And I do believe they compete for the same food sources. But there are both Bigfoot and dogman sightings in LBL, and they're fairly frequent. One thing you get with LBL that you don't get with a whole lot of other places is covered up missing people.
So there's lots of missing people over in that area.
Lots of stories of people going missing in LBL.
Is there a missing 411 group right in that area?
There is not, because it's not a national park. It's a public use area, so it doesn't fall under the missing 411s.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not considered a national park. It's maintained by the Park Service, but it's considered a public use area.
Public use area.
That area used to be known as the land between the rivers. And in 1963, the Tennessee Valley Authority dammed those two rivers and created the land between the lakes. But sightings of dogman type creatures in that area go back to the late 1600s when French trappers reported seeing what they called the loup-garou.
The rougarou.
No, loup-garou.
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 Yeah, that's French.
Which is the French word for werewolf. The rougarou is more of a Cajun legend, but it's a spin-off of the loup-garou.
A rougarou is not. A loup-garou is a werewolf, but a rougarou can be a bunch of different things. It can be an alligator spirit. It can be a wolf spirit. It can be. There's 100 different things that a rougarou could be. A lot of people just associate it with being a werewolf type creature or a dogman type creature, but it's not specifically that. It can be just, it can take, depending on what the evil spirit is that possesses the person. It could be a weregator, I guess. I guess that would be a term, wouldn't it, DA?
A weregator. That's kind of terrifying to think of, though.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
But loup-garou is actually the French word for werewolf. So
okay,
and like the beast of Gévaudan.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about here too. The term dogman was not coined until the 1992 or 3, DA?
No, it was late 90s, 98, 99, I think.
Okay, yeah. So everything prior to 98 or 99,
they referred to it as a wolfman or a werewolf.
Wolfman. There was no dogman sightings. There was werewolf sightings or wolfman sightings.
Kind of like prior to 1957, the word Bigfoot didn't exist.
Yeah.
Right.
They were wild men or, hairy men, or
hence the downy booger.
Exactly.
My grandparents used to refer to it as a booger. They'd say, boys, you need to be up here in the yard before it gets dark or booger gets you.
Exactly.
As a kid, you're like,
oh no, that couldn't possibly happen.
No.
But that's the thing is, it's just the term dinosaur wasn't around till the 1800s. So, I mean, we get so focused and so inside the box and inside our heads of what we call these things and what we know because of what's the popular terminology of the day. But sightings, like DA said, goes back to the 1600s. But it just wasn't called a dogman. It was called that. They were French trappers, so they called it loup-garou, which is their word for werewolf. And then, of course, the Cajuns morphed other things into the rougarou. But everything I don't know how many times we've said this. All these stories, all these legends, all this folklore has got some shred of truth in it. It's based on something that happened somewhere. People don't say that they saw these things and describe these things exactly the same as people. They didn't have Google back. They didn't have the Google back then to go type up and look and see what these things look like.
Mm-hmm.
So how did all these people who lived hundreds of miles apart that never ever would have heard or saw from each other describe these things exactly as they were? How did 4,000 years ago somebody carve on the Inca stones what a stegosaurus looked like? Because they couldn't go to the Google and look it up.
Right.
Had to have seen it.
So, what is the height ranges on a dogman?
You know, we get some outliers that they'll people have described them as being massive, but if you look at a broader scope of most sightings reports, dogmen seem to be smaller than Bigfoot. 6 to 7 foot seems to be a better average. You get some outliers that are 8 and 9 feet tall, but these things walk on hawked legs like a dog. So a leg structure like that is not going to support a massive beast. It would have to spend most of its time on all fours. But your dogmen reports tend to be a little smaller, not as heavy, not as big. Whereas you've got, some Bigfoot stories, they're, 12, 13, 14, 15 feet tall.
Right. Now, do they have hands like a person, with fingers and all, or are their 4 hands like paws?
On dogmen?
Yes.
I've heard so many stories of people saying that dogmen approached them on all fours. And then just prior to them standing up, they heard a popping sound, which to me, it almost seems like they can possibly shift the morphology of their hands.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
at least that's what it seems to me.
Almost maybe like a skinwalker?
Well, that's what I was about to get into. I think there's a difference between what people see as a dogman, which is an actual flesh and blood creature. This is my theory and my opinion on it. That's all it is. An actual creature versus a skinwalker can be like there again, like a rougarou can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's a demonic force, and that's I mean, think about what you have to do to become a skinwalker. You pretty much got to do something just straight up demonic to become a skinwalker.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg, if your greatest fear is a werewolf and a skinwalker comes after you, I believe you're going to see a werewolf. If DA's greatest fear is a gugway, I believe that's what he's going to see.
So what you're saying, if I go out to Skinwalker Ranch and I come across a skinwalker and it's going to try to come after me, I'm going to see my ex-wife. That's that's what you're telling me.
Northwoods would agree with you.
Okay. Gotcha.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm going to see a 12-foot cucumber because I hate vegetables. Or a 800-pound tomato.
I see what you mean, but
1,000-pound squash.
What you're insinuating, though. You're insinuating that something can read your mind.
Oh yeah, I think demons can do that, but that the kicker to that, because Krista and I have had this discussion before. If you open yourself up to that, and I think a lot of times when people go out in the woods and they say they hear mind speak, and they start trying to communicate with us, I don't believe Bigfoot does the mind speak. That's me, because I believe it's a flesh and blood creature. But if one of these things is out there and it starts talking to you and starts, and you're communicating with it, you're opening yourself up for that transference.
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna invade you and invade your mind. And that's there. Chris is chiming in right there. If you open yourself up to them, that's why I don't go into the woods and do things like I've been in the woods with people who, we're just here to have fun. I don't do that. I keep my mind focused on what I'm there for, keeping myself and my team safe, looking for evidence, things like that. I don't concern myself with all that. I'm trying not to be mean. I'm trying to search for an easy way to say it. Doc, help me out. A genteel way to say this. But it is what it is. I don't concern myself with that stuff. If somebody else wants to do that, that's fine. But I believe that if you open yourself up to that line of communication, then that's where, when you, like you said, Greg, that's when they can read your mind. If you don't allow that, if you don't open yourself up to that, then I don't think they can.
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as telepathy goes, okay, what is thought? Thought really is is it frequencies that you have that goes through your mind? Because eventually your mind has to tell your mouth to say something.
Well, really, all thought is an electrical impulse in the brain.
Electrical impulses, right? Okay, so is it plausible that something else can detect these frequencies or electrical impulses?
Oh, it's 100% plausible.
It's possible, but is it probable?
Well, yeah. That's true. I mean, if I've learned one thing over these past 10 years, is things that I used to thought did not exist, I can no longer treat something as if it's impossible. So what I keep myself open, I just keep myself open to possibilities. Not saying that, Bigfoot's going to read your mind. I don't know that. I will say that there was one time where it appeared that my entire life kind of flashed in front of my eyes when I was out in the woods, or in my head. I was like, holy crap, what happened? And it was like an uncontrollable memory, really, from birth till that day.
Well, and see, and that's the thing, Greg. You've had that experience. I haven't. Because I've always kept that singular focus anytime that I'm out there. Because and whether it's the law enforcement training or what what my dad did with me and my brother, teaching us to be that way of survival for you do this, that you always keep your head focused where it was supposed to be. But whatever it is, I've never experienced anything like you've experienced. But I'm not saying that what I just said a minute ago, there again, it's not a way, it's the way. It's not right. It's just my opinion. I don't believe that they could, DA and I've had this discussion.
And they really may not.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just an aberration that I experienced just with me. That's
could be,
but possible.
It may be what everybody's saying. I don't know. But we both feel like, because we've both been in situations in law enforcement when, going into a situation where we hear "get out." Now, is that Bigfoot in there telling us to get out, or is that our subconscious or our primitive mind, our whatever, our
sixth sense, maybe
whatever you want to call it, saying, "Hey, dummy, don't go in there because something's going to happen if you go in there." And that's the same mindset that I have when I'm out there doing the boots on the ground thing. Is I'm constantly thinking about what I need. And I always believe in this. I've done it, in my coaching. I do it in my law enforcement, and I do it when I'm out here. The more you bleed in practice, the less you bleed in battle. Or the more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle. However you want to look at it, whatever analogy you want to use. And I believe that goes with your mind too. When I put my uniform on, when I start putting my uniform on to go to work, I start constantly thinking, hey, if I was in this situation, if I go to this kind of call and somebody does this, how am I going to respond to that? What am I going to do? If I go over here and I stop this car and somebody says this, how am I gonna react to that? If I see somebody go for a gun, you did the same thing, didn't you, DA? Constantly game planning,
running scenarios.
Yeah, running scenarios about what, and I do the same thing when I go out in the woods. I'm like, all right, if I'm out here with my daughter, for example, what are my main goals going to be? I'm going to make sure she is out, and I'm going to stand my ground to make sure it doesn't get to her. But I'm constantly game planning things like that, so I don't let my mind wander into the stuff. I mean, if I see something, yeah, obviously I'm gonna look at it and investigate it. But I'm just constantly thinking of stuff like that, and honestly, that's kept me alive a time or two.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more than a time or two.
I will say this: when I first started seeing the orbs, I pointed them out to Brent, and these were very close. The orbs that I was looking at were very close to us, and I said, "Hey, Brent, do you see that?" And he would look and say, "What?" I said, those lights right there. And he's like, "What? I don't see anything." And they were literally 10, 15 feet away from us, about 10 and a half feet up in the air. And there was two of them. And it's, "Brent, do you see this?" And he couldn't see them. As a matter of fact, he couldn't even see some of the brighter ones until later. It was almost as if he had, he was mentally blocking them out, or he wasn't ready to see them, or something, but I do know that it took him a while to be able to see the orbs.
Jason Powell says, have any of you ever felt uncomfortable or scared, out of any place, feel like you're being watched?
Oh yeah, I felt that plenty of times.
Many times.
Absolutely.
Every time Johnny and I went up to that place where we investigate, we both have felt like something's watching us, and we're getting paced. When we go out, we're always feel like we're getting paced out of there.
Yes, glowworms. Okay. One of the blondes says that they saw some orbs this weekend, and suggested that it could be glowworms. Okay, yeah, glowworms is a possibility, because I have seen glowworms too. Glowworms are they're kind of similar to they're like little grubs, and they glow similar to a lightning bug.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all on the ground. Okay, now if they're on a hill or something, they could appear at night. They could appear to be up higher, but the places could they be glowworms? Some of the dimmer ones that you kind of see off that don't move anywhere, yeah, maybe, but you would have the one that we showed in the video, in the film, the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
It is so far beyond the brightness that a glowworm could do. It's unreal. As a matter of fact, lightning bugs had just come out during that time, and in some of the same frames, there are lightning bugs that show up. And you can tell the difference between the lightning bugs and the orbs. The difference is night and day. I mean, there's not even a comparison when you're looking at the two. So yeah, if you're seeing something glowing out in the woods, it could be glowworms. But you can walk up on glowworms. You can walk up on them, pick them up in your hand, and you try to walk up on an orb, they're going to disappear. You get real close to them, they disappear, and you can't get close enough to them to capture one, like you can a glowworm. So yeah, could be a glowworm if you don't go over and investigate. If you go over and investigate and it goes away, or moves back or moves at all. I mean, glowworms don't move at all. I mean, they're just kind of stuck right there, just little worms.
But it is an interesting theory. I mean, it could
It
account for
is.
some of what people believe are
It
orbs,
they
but not all.
not all of them, but they very, very well could account for some of the sightings of an orb that's just kind of sitting still. The one in our film, we saw it come like over like down the hill, and it would approach us and it would kind of move back and forth some, so it did not stay in one spot.
I don't know that I've ever seen an actual quote unquote orb. I can't think of ever catching one, but I do remember one time walking the old hospital. I think I saw what was kind of the opposite of an orb. I saw a ball of blackness go from one
Hmm.
old hospital room into the other.
Really,
Uh,
that is so
and
interesting.
and I went into the room after it, and there wasn't even furniture in that room. There was nothing in there.
Wow. Because I have lately seen what um, I would describe as shadow people.
Mhm.
Um, Now that's something that's going to come up in film number 2, is shadow people. Brent saw something. Now we're very experienced at this point, right? Really, nothing scares me at all. Uh, but Brent saw something that freaked him out so bad that he will not go back to the area where the metal project is. He will not go back. I'm going there tomorrow on an investigation. So tomorrow and uh, Friday, I'll be off investigating. I asked Brent to come along. He's like, "Nope, not coming back there." And during film number 2, you'll see why. Yeah. What he saw freaked him out, and he will not go back. So I guess there are some things out there that we just taught didn't exist. But like you said, Ta, you saw something that was kind of black and just the opposite of an orb. I think maybe he saw the same thing, something very similar, and it just he hasn't come to terms with that.
And like I say, everything that we say, we never put a stamp on it saying this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Not until you know for a fact.
right,
It's
and who's to say we'll ever know for sure? We may not. And
well, you know, uh, I once wanted to solve the mystery of Bigfoot, but once that mystery is solved, it's
I believe there's
what's
always
the
going to be
point
another
anymore?
mystery.
Yeah,
I believe there's always going to be another mystery
yeah.
because I don't think
There's
in
plenty
a
out there.
thousand lifetimes we'll solve all the mysteries of the universe.
Hmm. But just the nostalgia now of our journey. I would hate if the mystery was gone and there's nothing to it anymore.
Right.
I actually would hate that for future generations. So we've debated whether or not we had absolute 100% conclusive proof, whether we would even show it or not, just for
Well,
those reasons.
even if you did, I mean, for example, and I know Robbie's going to get excited about this. Look at sharks. We know sharks exist.
Mhm.
We've known sharks exist for a very long time. Yet we still don't know everything there is to know about them.
Right. And, like, do megalodons still exist? I've been seeing some
I think
very
it's entirely
interesting.
possible.
Yeah, I've been seeing some very interesting NASA footage that may suggest that they do.
Well,
So,
Greg, we are past the 2 hour mark. We generally wrap things up around 2 hours. We still gotta go through our spiel and talk about our affiliate programs, but I want to thank you so much for coming on. We've had a great time, and I'm really looking forward to being part of that next documentary.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. We definitely got to have you back.
Would love to. Anytime.
Because I think we could probably go another couple hours talking about shadow
easy.
creatures and stuff, but we need to save something for the next one because we tend to start dropping off viewers after about the 2-hour mark.
Right.
Well, before we do that, if anybody likes the back and forth between me and Greg, next Thursday, Greg, is that right?
Yes.
Next Thursday, Greg and I'll be on Blondes and Booze. So if y'all want to tune in and watch me and Greg, I think it's just going to be an open forum for people to ask us questions. Wasn't that what we talked about, Greg?
Yes.
Yeah. So Greg and I'll both be guests on Blondes and Booze next Thursday. So y'all tune in to Blondes and Booze podcast.
I'm guest co-hosting on Blondes and Booze tomorrow night with Seth from Small Town Monsters. So I'll be with the Blondes tomorrow night at 8.
And Greg and I'll be with them next Thursday night.
That's right. I'll be there in spirit tomorrow, but I'll be out investigating tomorrow.
Well, good luck, man. I hope you find some awesome stuff and get it on film.
Me too.
Doc, since you're here, we can't hear you.
Your turn.
Yeah, you might have to back out and come back in. Robbie, since we're waiting on Doc, you want to tell us about Scallywag Tactical?
Well, sure. Scallywag Tactical is one of our veteran-owned affiliate groups. They make some of the best pocket knives, fixed blades, kitchen knives, fillet knives, just about any kind of knife that you could imagine they make. They hold an edge better than just about any knife that I've ever had. I've had Kershaw, I've had Spyderco, I've had Schrade, Gerber. If it's a knife, I probably owned at least one of them. That's the Dew Claw that DA's holding up right there. He's going to hold up just about every one of the knives.
Not all of them, but a few.
Yeah, you got a good chunk of the collection. That's their new karambit. What's that one called, or is it just the karambit?
It's the karambit.
Okay, that's the karambit that they've been sold out of forever, and usually this is the Jolly Roger. That's the Razor.
The Razor folder.
Razor folder. Doc's got your little sword, Doc.
Yeah.
That's Doc's mini jack.
Yep.
Just really, really good quality knives. They've got a section called Blemish Blades, which is where this one came from, and there's not a blemish on it. Matter of fact, most of the knives that we show you come from the Blemish Blades. Now that the good knives are great too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But if you want to save yourself a little bit of money, go look at the Blemish Blades first and see if they've got one that you like there. Because it's not like they've got every single blade that they make in the Blemish Blades. But there's, if a stack of knives fall over in the box and the box gets damaged, they can't sell it as new. They put it in the Blemish Blades. So you get a good discount. This is a $45 knife, and I got it for, $15, I think. Was what this one
I believe that's what it was.
And so I challenge you to go find any knife at any one of those big stores, Schrade, Spyderco, Kershaw, any of those that will outperform this. It's a $45 knife in retail, but I paid $15 for it. I dare anybody to get one that will perform for the money better than this knife, and you're not going to be able to do it.
If you're a fisherman, you're going to want this one. It's called
Bad
the Bad Fish.
Because, Doc, tell the good folks how many ways this thing right here will cut you.
3 ways: long, deep, and continuous.
And Robbie and I can both attest.
Yes. DA and I are a part of I guess we're the only 2 members. We're the only 2 that we know of.
Only publicly acknowledged members of the idiot club that cut ourselves.
Yeah, DA's trying to shave his arm to show how sharp his knife was. And I was flipping mine open just like I've been doing here. And Doc's laughing because he knows exactly. He knew it when it happened. Yep. I didn't say it, but Doc knew it because I got a text message from him. He said, "You cut yourself, didn't you?" I'm like, sure did. So Yeah, knife. I flipped the knife open, it fell out of my hands, and like a dummy, you just out of reaction, I reached down and grabbed it, and I was like, "God, that hurt." And I just kept on going, kept on. I looked down at my phone. There's a text message from Doc that says, "You cut yourself, didn't you?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did." So they're very sharp. They will cut you 3
Miss
ways.
Lene says she used her bad fish to butcher a chicken yesterday.
I guess it's called the bad chicken now.
It's a filleting knife, it's for sure. It'll get the job done.
The and these knives. I mean, there's no play. The locking mechanisms are really strong when they lock in, but also they're really easy, one-handed operation, but rock solid. There's no play, no, a lot of knives you get, once it locks open, you can feel a little wiggle in it. Right? There's none. The clips are really, I mean, there's no play in those clips. They're just good knives.
After a lot of use, you can loosen those screws a little bit. Just get to a hex head screw and tighten them right back up. But you can loosen those screws up after a lot of use.
But the point is, it takes a lot of use, like DA said. These knives you can use these knives a lot harder and a lot more than most of those $230 Spyderco or Kershaw knives that you can get.
I don't get a knife to set on a shelf and look pretty. I use mine.
And when you go to the website, scallywagtactical.com, and you go to the blemish blade sections, you look through there, you get your knives that you want to get. When you go to checkout, put code DA Roberts 10 in and get yourself an extra 10% off. Tell them we sent you. If you read the books, you've heard the knives. They're in the books for a reason. They're in the books because DA believes in them. He uses them. We all believe in them. We all use them. Each one of us have got at least, I think, 3 or 4 at least each, not counting DA. I'm talking about me and Doc, the normal people that don't have it, almost every one of them.
Yeah.
But they're good knives. This is my everyday between the shop and the laser engraver knife that I carry with me to use. My sailor assisted folder is my go out on the town knife. When I go out, that's the knife. And my Orca is what's on my
fancy dressing knife.
Yeah, that's my fancy dressing knife. And my Orca is my work knife. That's my EDC knife for work. It stays with my uniform stuff. And they all get used.
Yeah, we're not just fans of Scallywag Tactical. We're all very satisfied customers.
Yep. Matter of fact, I went over to help Taylor take off some trash today. We had to break down some cardboard boxes. She goes over, pulls out and says, whips out her Jolly Roger just like this, starts breaking down the cardboard boxes, and I'm like, that's my baby. She's using her Scallywag Tactical. She loves it. I mean, she's had that knife for as long as I've had this one, and she uses it every single day. And it's still
wicked sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Doc, now that you got audio, you want to tell us a little bit about Dark Angel Medical?
Yeah, man.
You might know a thing or two about it.
I know a guy. I know a guy. So for those of you who are not familiar with my company, Dark Angel Medical, you can read about it in pretty much all of DA's books. The Ragnarok Rising series, the Dark Frontiers, the Apex Predator, the Wild Hunt series, Lakeview Man. Their books have been all of those in there. All of those books have been in those. All the kits have been in those books. Sorry, y'all. I've been up since like 6 this morning. So if you head over to our website, darkangelmedical.com, check out our med kits. We make anything from your minor first aid trauma kits to your major first aid trauma kits, all the way up to mass casualty bags, ruggedized cases for your car, boat, RV, anything like that. But when I started the company, I said, I don't just want to make a medical product. I want to teach people how to use them, because I think in knowledge is empowerment. You got to have the knowledge to be able to employ this equipment quickly and effectively, because when you need to employ this, it's just like employing a fire extinguisher. When you need it, you really need it. And so that's one thing we do. We go around the United States training people. So if you look on our website, under the training tab, and see if there's a city that will be in near you, awesome. If you can't make it to an in-person class, we also have online training classes, and we have some YouTube videos that are very informative that'll get you a good jumping off point as well. So get that kit, get the training, because whenever you need one, you really are going to need one. If you use the coupon code Cryptid25, that'll give you 25% off your order. All of our kits are HSA and FSA eligible, and so use that FSA, HSA money because you can get one of those, get one or 15. It's not going to hurt my feelings. And for those of you who bought our kits, we appreciate y'all. If you ever happen to use one of our kits to save a life, just let us know. What happened, what the circumstances were, what you used out of the kit, and we will replace what you have used 100% free of charge. And that's called our Kit for Life Guarantee. Our kits are not inexpensive by any means, but it's because they're good, and we put good stuff in there. We don't put any knockoff crap in there. We're direct with all the manufacturers, and so we want to make sure that you have the best equipment when you're going out and about doing whatever it is you do on your daily life. So go over to darkangelmedical.com and use that coupon code Cryptid25, and we'll appreciate you very much and be obliged to you.
Well, you never know,
Doc,
the life you save might be your own.
That's right. Or someone you care about. Well, Doc, if you need a doctor, if something is really bad and you're really, really sick and you need a doctor, do you want Dr. Nick Riviera from The Simpsons, or do you want somebody that graduated top of his class?
Exactly. I want to put the best stuff in there, and that's
Birthdays
what we do.
in boxes.
Birthdays and boxes, baby. That's exactly it. Every day.
Our other affiliate is Ken Brock, who's in the chat razzing Robbie every chance he gets. But BrockBlades.com is another knife maker, and again, we're happy to support him. But unlike Scallywag's blades are mass produced, and they are beautiful blades. They're fantastic blades. They're high quality blades. But if you buy any two of their knives and lay them side by side, they're going to be identical. Ken's blades are handmade. They're hand forged. No two will ever be just alike. You can custom order your knives to your specifications, the blade type, handle type. And you can choose and pick every detail of that blade. He does have some blades for sale, that as is on the website at brockblades.com. But you can also custom order that knife. And if you've got somebody that in your life that's a veteran or a current member of the armed forces or a first responder or an outdoorsman, hunter, fisherman, whatever, the gift of a custom blade is something that will be cherished for a lifetime. And these things are not just designed to set on a shelf. This one goes pretty much everywhere I go. This one is called the Skane Do. Doc's got a couple of. He's got the Street Weasel and the Neck Scalpel, and I think he's got another one or two. But Ken's blades are just fantastic knives. That's why Will Gray Eagle carries the Ardennes. But definitely check those out. And if you use discount code Cryptid10 at checkout, you get 10% off your order. That includes custom orders. So just make sure you mention to Ken in your custom order that you heard about brockblades.com through this show, and you'll get 10% off your entire order. Use the discount code is Cryptid10. And there's a reason that we have chosen these particular folks as our affiliates. I get an email a couple times a week since the channel's still growing. I've had a company that it was hammocks that wanted us to be an affiliate, and I've had a couple others that I've turned down. But we're pretty selective, and not because we're being snobs, but because we want to give back. Dark Angel, Scallywag Tactical, Brock Blades, they're all veteran or first responder owned. We owe a huge debt to the people that have served in uniform and have paved the way for us to be safe in our homes and safe in our country. We are proud to support veteran owned and first responder owned businesses, and it's something that I hope we always do. Because again, folks, we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. In fact, just a couple of days ago, there was a first responder killed in California. He was a LA County deputy. He was sitting at a stoplight and a car pulled up next to him and shot him in the back of the head. These folks give everything to keep us safe, and the least we can do is support them and show them how much they mean to us. Reach out to your folks, people friends, family, even acquaintances, somebody that has been a first responder or been in the military, veteran, even if they didn't see combat, because some of the MOSs still see some pretty horrific stuff. Reach out to your friends and family. Let them know you're thinking about them, because that text that you send to them, checking on them, might be what pulls them back off the edge, because 22 a day is entirely too many to lose. And I will get a little bit emotional about this subject, because I've been there when too many folded flags were handed out, and it's something you don't ever forget. Sorry, I'm kind of collecting myself here a second. Sorry.
You want me to talk about?
Greg?
You want me to talk about what's really out there right quick? While you?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. And I'm not going to take the normal lighthearted approach on what's really out there this time. DA and Doc know the inside scoop on this, and I'm not going to say everything that's going on, but it might be a little bit before another episode comes out. Not saying it's not going to come out, but there's been some internal things that happen. Like I said, DA and Doc both know what's going on. Greg, I think I might even have talked to you about it a little bit at the conference. But there's some internal things going on. We've got to find us another place to record at. We do have one more episode that'll be coming out here for too long. A breakdown of the conference and some of the stuff we did down there in Texarkana and things like that. But after that, I don't know when the next show will come out. It's just a matter of we got to find a place, and Johnny and I are both actively trying to find another place to that we can record at. So y'all stick with us. There's going to be more. It's just I don't know when we're going to be able to get it, because like I said, we've got to find us another place because of some things that happened. And I guess that's all I got to say about that.
Folks, make sure you can watch Greg's documentary. It's called Legend of the Downy Booger. You can find it on Apple TV and on Hulu. I watched it on Hulu last night I think it's the third time I've watched it. It's a fantastic documentary, and it's well worth watching. So definitely go over and give them some love and watch that documentary. You'll thoroughly enjoy it. Greg, when are you expecting the next one to be out?
Well, the final filming will probably wrap up in March of 24. So then we've got some editing and maybe some other pickup shots to do to essentially connect the dots. But we're probably looking at sometime next fall. And that would be a more realistic time, roughly about a year from now is when we're done editing and getting everything put together. That's an enormous task in itself, So there's only two of us. So,
and what's its working title? Do you know?
Well, it's Strange Encounters in the Land Between the Lakes.
I can't wait to be part of it, man. I'm really
excited.
Either.
That's awesome.
I think we're gonna have a good time.
Oh yeah.
It'll be good. I promise you, it'll be good.
Folks, y'all know that
you heard it straight from the dogman, eye candy.
That's right.
That's right. Y'all know we've kind of started a tradition here on DAX Machina. We always end the evening with a toast. And this one's particularly poignant to me because I lost my aunt 2 days ago. It's the last of my mother's sisters. She passed away peacefully, and I'm going to miss her pretty deeply. I'm going to miss Aunt Violet. She was a pistol. But Shit, I may have to have one of you guys actually say the toast. There's an old line from an old song. It's an Irish song. And you all know me. I've talked about my family being Scotch-Irish. The song is called The Parting Glass. Sorry.
Take you down, brother.
And it's when you read the lyrics and you listen to the song, it's talking a lot more than just somebody lifting a final glass and going home from the bar at the end of the night. It's a song about loss, and it's a song about losing people and lifting your glass to the memory of the ones we've lost. And so, there's a fallen officer in California I'm lifting my glass for, my Aunt Violet. And I know there are others out there. One in particular I won't mention right now, but we'll talk about it on Saturday. The line says, "But since it fell unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everybody.
Watch out.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.